Allora.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to KindSoup. We are so lucky today because we have Chef Vered Guttman, who is an Israeli chef living in DC, joining us today. She is going to cook with us a fantastic, and I can say that because I'm 99% done, Israeli Swiss chard and chickpea soup with beef or a vegetarian version with tofu. And I would just like to share with you a little bit about Chef Guttman. She's, in addition to being an Israeli chef, she's a food writer and a food historian living in our DC area. Her columns and articles on Israel and Jewish food appear in Haaretz, as well as the Washington Post, Slate, Moment Magazine, NPR, and others. Her writings also appear on her blog, Vered's Israeli Cooking. I will put links to her website and her blog in the chat. As a chef and a caterer, Vered specializes in Israeli and Middle Eastern cuisines. She has catered private parties, diplomatic events, corporate receptions, and in 2014, cooked for President Obama's Passover Seder at the White House. So maybe we'll get to hear a little bit about that. But for now, I just would like to say how totally thrilled we are to have you cooking with us, and welcome, Chef Vered.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to teach you a little bit about Israeli cuisine and a soup from that combines a lot of Israeli ingredients that we like to cook always with.
Uh-oh. I think somehow you got muted, sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sorry about that.
So did you hear anything that I said? Or?
Yes, oh yes, just the
okay.
last. Yeah.
Okay, I think we should start with dealing with the Swiss chard, and we can talk during while we do that. Is that okay?
Fantastic. Everybody
good?
Will
take some time. Everybody's good? Okay, so I assume you all have a few bunches of Swiss chard. I have some of the regular ones and some of the rainbow ones. They all work fine. And what I want you to do is to take a leaf and just with your hands, rip the greens apart. What you do is you can rip the bottom here and then then you just pull it from the stem. You don't need to use a knife for it. Just like that, that's fine. You keep the stems also. I have a bowl here that I'm gonna keep the stems up, and I'm gonna keep the greens here. So just continue to do it with all the stems. You know, after you do it a few times, you'll see that it's easy to separate them. Is that okay?
Okay, Vered, this is Lisa.
Yes.
I'm going to make a true confession. I grabbed the wrong ingredient in the grocery store. And so I bought kale instead of chard, but I'm happy to report that it turned out very tasty. I made mine between yesterday and today. So.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And it worked nicely with kale? What type of kale?
Just
the curly regular one?
No, the regular kale, but I didn't use the center ribs because the ribs are often tough on kale.
Right, yeah.
So just the leaves, but it turned out okay, and a neighbor tested it and gave it the 3 thumbs up. So.
Okay, so
Lisa, I'm glad to hear that because my store didn't have the Swiss chard, and I ended up buying kale as well. So
you're gonna be good to go.
Really?
Kale also.
Yeah, so kale, I mean, Whole Foods always have it. I should have maybe mentioned it when I sent you the recipe. Whole Foods, they always have it. And you know, most of the Korean and Chinese stores in our area, usually in the suburbs, they also have it. So yeah. So is anyone still reaping their Swiss chard? Or tell me when we can continue. Just a second.
You're ready to go. We can keep on moving.
Oh, seriously? Okay, that's quickly. So tell me at any point, let me know if you have any questions or if you want me to talk about anything while we cook, but for now we can continue. I'm going to put the greens on the side for now, and I'm going to start with the stems. I'm just going to remove the bottom of the stem is usually a little like dirty, even though I washed it, it usually doesn't look good. So I just remove the bottom from all of them. You see it in the, yeah?
Yep.
And okay. And then we're just gonna chop it just like you would with celery stalks. And by the way, Swiss chard is so popular in Israel. And one of the things people use it the most for is they stuff the leaves with, just like you do with cabbage. So they stuff the leaves and cook it, and it's delicious. My mother is doing it all the time. Okay, we have another one here. So after we do that, we're going to turn the heat on our burner with a soup stock pot, and I'm gonna put some oil in there. Okay, and then we're going to basically saute all the vegetables. Not all the vegetables, most of it. So we can start with a Swiss chard stems, just the stems, like that. I'm gonna add the onion, a little bit of carrots and celery. And I didn't find celery roots, so instead I'm using parsley. But either way, it's not necessary. It's not, you don't have to do it, but it is delicious to use celery root. And usually it is available in most supermarkets. I don't know what happened this time that I couldn't find it. We're gonna give it some time, like 5-6 minutes to soften a little bit to get some color, and then we'll continue. What we can do in the meantime is...
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
The question is about, I love so much that you separate the stalks and the leaves of the Swiss chard and then use the stalks just by cooking it longer. It makes it edible. Right. Do you do that with all of your foods? I mean, anytime you cook with Swiss chard, if you're cooking it for something for a while, do you throw the stalks part in early and use it?
Yes, yeah, in other soups as well. That's usually what I use it, but also like sometimes I cook it with let's say with chickpeas, like just a dish of chickpeas and Swiss chard. So I'll saute some, something similar to that, the stems with some onion, maybe other vegetables, just as you would with celery. You know how many times you start a dish with celery and carrots and onions. So you use the same way you use the stalks of the stems of the Swiss chard. You cook it for a while with some olive oil, and then you add chickpeas, maybe some water, and that's a delicious dish that uses the same technique of cooking the stems a bit longer. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
So what I want to do now is to take the leaves You can take a few at a time, just like kind of roll them together, and we're gonna slice them to strips like this, like a quarter of an inch or so. We're gonna use it later in the soup because we want to keep them greener. We don't want to cook them for that long. And just repeat and do it with all your kale / chard that you have. Let me show you once again. I love the sound of the vegetables cooking in the oil. Okay. So it's nice that the soup is gonna have so much green in it. It's wonderful. Let me mix it again. I think it smells so good. Okay. So do you want me to talk a little bit about Israeli cuisine as we do this? Or do you have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
I'm
please.
making the vegetarian vegan one, and
Yes.
how much do we add water to this?
Yeah, I made a mistake. It's supposed to be 1 gallon or 4 quarts of soup and not just one.
Oh, it's supposed to be 4.
So, yes, I'm sorry about that, and I hope you have enough.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Any broth can really work with it. I mean, vegetables or like chicken flavor, vegan chicken flavor one will work as well.
I have a
question.
question.
Yes.
When do you put in the leaves, the chard leaves? Or the
later at the end after we saute this and we add you'll see, but it's later.
Okay.
Yeah. We add the broth that we made yesterday and then we continue. So but really the leaves you can really add even at the last 15 minutes or so. They don't need that much time for cooking.
So yes, please do tell us about Israeli cooking and its influences and how do people, tell us whatever you can tell us. We'd love to learn.
Okay. I can talk a lot about Israeli cuisine. So
Good.
You stop me when you're tired. So first of all, I need to say that Israel is going to celebrate its 75th anniversary in a week, 10 days, a week actually, yes, exactly a week, because today is actually the eve of Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel, and the way the holidays are scheduled are we have Holocaust Memorial Day. A week later, we have the regular Memorial Day in Israel in memory of all the fallen soldiers. And the day after that is Independence Day. So Israel is going to be 75 years old. And it's true that it's a country with a very ancient history, but it's also a very young country. So the cuisine is still evolving, and it's. I hope you could see me through all the steam. The cuisine is still evolving, and it's a very diverse immigrant cuisine of Jews who came from all over the Jewish diaspora, meaning, all the Middle East in the wide sense of that, from North Africa all the way to Iraq and Iran, Yemen, India, and then mainly Eastern Europe and Russia. All of them came starting at the end of the 19th century, and then a big wave of of immigrants came after 1948, where the country was established. And everyone brought with them their own cuisine that they, from their homeland. Before I continue, I want to continue with that now. So if you sauteed all your veggies, I'm going to bring now the soup, the broth that we made yesterday. I have it here. Actually, that was Hebrew. Okay. And I have the broth with beef in it. And oh, actually, I'm sorry. You see, this is not a soup that I make all the time. So before that, we actually need to add some tomato paste. And mix it and let it cook for another minute or two. And by the way, this is something I do with any recipe that asks for tomato paste. If you cook it, if you like kind of fry it really with oil for a minute or two, it just brings this toasted, charred almost aroma of tomatoes that's so good. And like burnt tomatoes is always the best thing. So if you let it cook like that for a second, for a minute, you'll get that aroma and it's wonderful. Let me check the recipe so I'm not making a mistake. It's not a recipe that I make always. Tomato paste, and then perfect. Okay. So we were talking about the Israeli cuisine. So all the people who came, each with their own cuisine. First of all, they met the Palestinians who were living there and had their own local cuisine at the time, and they learned from them. But mainly what the Jewish population did is to continue to cook whatever they were cooking where they came from. So for my own family, for example, on my mother's side, my grandparents came from Poland, and my Polish grandmother continued to cook, the filter fish, chulen, babkas, herring is what she would serve with challah, and all the dishes that are called, that in the United States are really called Jewish cuisine, but are really very specifically Ashkenazi Jewish cuisine. So I'm adding the soup at this point, the broth into our soup pot with all the meat. If you're doing the vegetarian version, so apologies again, but it should be 4 quarts or 1 gallon, and not, as I said. Okay. At this point, I can just pour the rest in.
Vered, I don't know if it's possible. Is it possible to make it a tiny bit louder on your end?
To make it louder, I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll just keep going. But if it's possible, if your husband can figure that one out, we'll challenge him.
I mean, I think it depends what the volume that you hear is probably.
It depends on our side, right? Yeah,
I think
that's
so.
okay.
Maybe there was noise because I was pouring the soup. Yeah, I'm not sure, but maybe. Can you hear me? Or yes.
Yes, I have two things. Deb, why didn't you tell me that my name showed as Rabbi Raskin? You need to tell me when, because I let
Well,
it.
I'm used to that, and I was totally immersed in what Vered was
Oh,
saying. My
sorry.
apologies, Marge.
My second thing is that Vered, I was told I have to tell you
Yes.
that I'm Kira's mom. You know Kira?
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
Of course you know Kira. Yes, I was told.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's so nice. So you're part of this organization?
I'm part of this soup. It's not quite clear, but I'm part of the soup. I've been cooking soup for 2.5 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've
That's
been cooking
nice.
for 2.5 years. I cook all the time. Yesterday, I cooked with Har Shalom. We made a red lentil soup, and today I'm cooking with you. So
That's so nice. I
It's
love
fun.
Kira. I mean, she's just wonderful.
thank you. I love her too.
Yeah, no, she's nice.
Thank you.
I mean, really, she's really great. That's very funny. So yeah, Israeli cuisine. So on my mother's side, they came from Poland. My grandmother kept on cooking Polish food for the rest of her life. My father's side, they came from Iraq. My father was born in Baghdad, and they moved to Israel when he was a year old. They took a taxi from Baghdad to Tel Aviv. Different times. It was 1943. And my Iraqi grandmother kept on cooking Iraqi food for the rest of her life. So, for example, one of the best soups ever is kibbeh soup. Kibbeh or kube are these dumplings that are made from either ground rice or farina, stuffed with meat and then cooked. The Iraqis actually don't do it so much as soup, more like a sauce, but other like Kurdish Jews and mainly the Kurds do it more like a soup. With either Swiss chard, that's a very sour soup, or with a beet broth, or with okra. It's delicious. So she used to make that. I didn't want to demo that soup because it's so much work. You would not be happy with me if I did. So I'm adding now some garlic into the broth. Just crushing it directly into the broth. And okay. That's always delicious. I'm gonna add a little more. We're adding the garlic. We're gonna add the potatoes now that are already diced. Chickpeas, these are canned chickpeas that I pre-cooked, pre-washed in water. And I'm gonna add freshly squeezed lemon juice. And I'm gonna add the leaves now. I can start by adding as much as will fit in. They will wilt, and this will clear space for more. Okay, it actually all fit in. Do you have any questions about the soup, about the steps we did now? I think what I'm going to do
When do
now.
we add the tofu?
Excuse me?
When do we add the tofu?
Oh, the tofu you add at the end, really at the end, because the tofu you don't want to cook for too long. The tofu can really be for a few minutes at the end. So if you're doing the vegan one, ignore the tofu until the last minute. Okay, so we're waiting now to bring it to boil again. And if we want to make it quicker, we could cover the pot, and that will expedite things. You know, we are actually kind of done with the soup. Of course, we're gonna taste it and add salt as needed, or lemon juice if you want, and we're gonna add some cilantro if you want. At the end, you can also do that only when serving, or you know, if you're donating the soup, then you can add it at the last minute, and it will still, like, you will still be able to smell the wonderful aroma of cilantro. I love that. So let me know if you have any questions about the soup, but I'm gonna talk more about Israeli cuisine. So the first generation of Israelis, everyone was cooking the dishes they brought with them from Morocco, Tunisia, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Poland, Germany, and they were very suspicious with each other's dishes, and they would make fun of each other, and would not dare to even try anything. And then the second generation, my parents' generation, they started to have mixed marriages. They were all Jews, but you know, if my mother is Polish and my father is Iraqi, it was considered a big deal. But then my mother and her friends, they started cooking things that they learned from their mother-in-laws and from friends. So on my mother's dinner table, you would find, you know, some Polish dishes, but then, you know, Yemenite pastries like jafnoun, that are these rolls that you bake overnight, and they're wonderful. And Turkish burekas, that is a national obsession. It's these pastries filled with cheese or potatoes, wonderful. Moroccan carrot salad, German or Russian cabbage salads, Hungarian desserts. That was always a must. So a mix and match of a full Jewish diaspora on each table, which is something that people do until this day. And then you have my generation and younger generations of chefs and home cooks that are just doing the fusion, or making the fusion of all of these cuisines together. They're just mixing and matching and being influenced from not only from the Jewish and Palestinian cuisines, but also from their travel. And I think that's something that's very unique to Israeli cuisine, that they're it's very non-traditionalist cuisine. It's very much like the Israeli society, like no rules, just fun, and you know, wherever their imagination takes them, that's good. So so you see fun dishes like you know, like tabbouleh salad, the one with the bulgur and herbs and that, and we add raw fish to it. So it's like a ceviche tabbouleh. People make all these incredible inventions. And actually, I think that one of the best examples of how Israelis mix everything is the way they eat falafel in Israel. Of course, Israelis did not invent the falafel. It's actually unclear who did. It's available in Egypt, where it's called ta'amiyah, and it's made with the fava beans. In other places, like in Israel, they make it with chickpeas. But the way Israelis serve it, they first of all serve it in a very thick pita bread that's based on the Yemenite saluf. It's a thick bread that the Yemenites were the first to sell falafel in Israel to the Jews. So they took their saluf, the bread that they knew that was like a thick, flat bread, and made it into a pocket bread, like a pita pocket bread, but it's very thick. And in that you have the Palestinian chopped salad and tahini, and you serve it. They serve it with Moroccan carrot salad and Iraqi fried eggplant and Iraqi mango chutney type of thing. Yemenite shug, which is a spicy sauce. German sauerkraut, Russian cabbage salad, French fries. All of this in one pita. That's the most Israeli thing on its own. And you have to try that. I mean, it's the best food ever.
Does anybody make it like that in DC?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, if you think about it, if you've ever been to Amsterdam falafel,
That's what I was gonna say. They're great.
yeah,
They have
they're
all the
great,
stuffings.
and it's funny. You know why they're called Amsterdam falafel? The reason, I'm sorry, I'm washing my hands. That's why you can see me right now. The reason they're called Amsterdam falafel is because in Amsterdam there are many Israelis who open falafel places starting in the 80s or something like that. And so Amsterdam falafel is really Israeli falafel, and that's why you have all the salads in Amsterdam falafel. But I have to say off the record here that Amsterdam falafel is terrible. What was the name? Shalom? What was where did we used to go to eat in Wheaton? Max's falafel in Wheaton was amazing, but they just closed. And there are two guys that they sell Dalia's. It's called Dalia's falafel. That's also very Israeli. They're somewhere in Kensington, like behind this, like it's almost impossible to find them. You need to Google them and just see where they are. But they are very Israeli also. They don't have this variety of salads, but it feels very Israeli. They have the thick pita bread. They have the right attitude. So that's the one I like. But unfortunately, there's not good enough hummus. There's not good enough falafel in here.
So
you know.
How does that compare to Max's? Because you're right, Max's was great.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So how does what compare? Dalia's?
Dahlia's, yeah.
Dalia's, it's just a very small operation. It's two guys. One of them, his mother is Dalia. And so they work in this, like they kind of put a tent behind this, some kind of workshop in Kensington. It's really almost impossible to even find them. And I guess they just sell to people who work in the area. So they do not have, it's been a while since I've been there. They don't have the variety of salads, but what they do have, it does taste really, really good.
Do they do they have shawarma or not?
No, it's only the falafel.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, yes.
So Amsterdam falafel is falafel and fries. Is that an Israeli thing to have falafel and fries?
Yeah, falafel and fry inside the pita, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all the combination of salads, like it's so good. I have a friend who used to eat falafel without the falafel because like all the salads in the pita, what really makes it so good. So yeah, that's why I keep on going to Israel all the time to have falafel the right way. It's my favorite.
I love the way you describe life in Israel, because it certainly isn't, for those of us, and I may be the only one who have never been to Israel, here from, our press, doesn't ever describe life in Israel as so much fun and everything goes, we're just here to have fun. And so I loved hearing you say that and to learn that the food reflects that attitude as well.
Of course, that's not the whole story. Unfortunately,
But
definitely
it's
not
the
now.
story that you told and I love it.
Yeah, thank you. But the
It's
truth
true.
is,
It's
I mean,
true. She's right.
yeah,
It is true. It is fun. And you have
yeah,
to like cats.
yes,
For those of you who don't know
that's
what I'm
true.
talking about, there are cats everywhere. You'll be sitting in a restaurant and some of them are outside, and these cats will just go walking through or jump up on a table. It's like, oh my God.
Yes, I mean, it's similar to squirrels here, I would say, except that squirrels are afraid of you and cats, as you said, are not. They actually want you to get them stuff. So, and they're hungry. But they're very cute. I mean, you know, if you're not bothered by it, then you're gonna love it. So my kids always get excited about that. Okay, this is you know, once the soup boils, you can and should reduce the heat to just very slow simmer. You can still keep it covered, and we're gonna let it like 15 minutes or so, or more. You know, basically until the potatoes are tender and you can eat them. That's when it's ready. So you know, we can check it in about 15 minutes. And in the meantime, I chopped some cilantro to serve it with. You know, again, you can either just put all of it inside the soup at the last minute and turn it off, or just put it on top when you serve it with some cilantro on top when you serve it. But first, we're gonna also check and see that the soup is, you know, that we don't need to add more salt, which I'm sure we will. And yeah, okay, my husband reads my mind and he just went and got me a tablespoon. Wow, for that. No, it's incredible. He's actually listening and reads minds. So yeah, anyone has any other questions or something you want to talk about as we wait for the soup to be?
Vered, why don't you talk a little bit about what you do when you're not doing cooking classes?
When I'm not doing, was just that Jill?
Yes.
Hey, hi, I'm not seeing you guys, so I just recognize your voice. I can't see because Nathan is facing the phone. Hey, what do I do besides for doing cooking classes? I write about mainly about Jewish food, some Israeli food. I mean, when I first started writing, which was like, I'm not even sure, 12 years ago or 15 or something. I wanted to write about Israeli cuisine and this, you know, the fusion, the new Israeli cuisine. And then I slowly realized that what I'm really interested in are those actually more traditional Jewish foods from all over the diaspora, and their symbolic meanings, and their meaning for, you know, if it's for Shabbat or for all the many Jewish holidays we have. So all the stories behind the dishes, and dishes, how they turn from one thing to another, how they travel the world, the dishes, because the Jews kept on being expelled from one place to the other. That's really interesting. So I write a lot about that. I had a column for Haaretz for many years, and right now I'm writing mainly for Moment Magazine and for the Nosher, for the Nosher that belong to JTA. No? And I'm also a caterer, so I mainly work at 6 and I, the historic synagogue in DC, which is a wonderful place, as Kira Moms knows. And that's it. That's what I do professionally.
I've eaten your cooking because you sometimes cater things, holidays from 6th and I. So we have
Yeah.
had your food before. It's quite good. Worth
Thank you.
having. Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank
You
you so
cooked.
much.
You cooked. I
Yes.
didn't have to cook.
Yes, that's good. That's always good. Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else I should talk to you about? You want to ask about the soup? You know, when I was asked to do this to teach you how to cook a soup, an Israeli soup, I was thinking about it and realized there's no such thing as like the national soup or like one soup that everybody's making. I mean, people eat soup, but there's no. So, and I think the two soups that would come to mind are chicken soup or chicken matzo ball soup. But I thought, you know, that would be too boring for me to teach you, and you'll be upset with me. And then all the soups with the dumplings that I mentioned earlier, like the Iraqi one that my grandmother used to make, and Kurdish Jews, you know, the Kurdish Jews came from one part of Iraq, so they have similar cuisines. They also serve it. Those are very popular. Not so much, I mean, people do make it at home, usually people with some you know, some family history in the region, but people eat it in restaurants a lot, like in very traditional restaurants. They still serve it, and it's so delicious. It's a lot of work, so you know, if I could buy it somewhere here, I would, but I can't. Just like the falafel, I have to make it myself. So those are the real soups that I would say are really, really Israeli, but you know, so then I thought, okay, we'll make this. That's Israeli in spirit, this soup.
Vered, can you tell us about your cooking at the White House?
Yes, sure. I mean, there's not much to say. It sounds much more than it really is, because by the time the White House approached me and Susan Barokas, who was cooking with me there, they already decided on the menu, and the way it worked, actually, the way they did it every year, the story of the White House Seder, it started by the Obamas. Obama, when he was still running for president, on the Seder, on the road, you know, his advisors, his team, they wanted to make a Seder, and they invited him. And that was their first Seder. And they said at the end, instead of next year in Jerusalem, they said next year at the White House. And so it was. And they continued to do it with the same very small group of friends. I mean, it was about 20 people, that's all. They continued to do this, and every one of them would bring a recipe from their own family to make for the Seder. So I really brought with me only one recipe that was for a quinoa salad. Quinoa is kosher for Passover now. Quinoa salad with sweet potatoes or yams and kale. Speaking of kale, and with coconut milk. And the nicest thing was, first of all, like we sent the list, just like I sent you the menu, we sent it to the White House. They had to get all the ingredients. And when I got there, like they already chopped everything. And like, I've never seen sweet potato diced so nicely. And it was just like you got it from a machine. It was exactly all the same size. It was crazy. And all I had to do was just basically mix it and make it for 10 minutes. Then we had like 7 more hours to kill. And so I was helping the chef to make the Seder plates. Those are like, you know, symbolic plates that we served. They had one for each person. And we visited some of the rooms. It was really beautiful, and people were just so nice over there. The next year they called me again, but my son had his bar mitzvah on the same time in Israel, which I was not going to cancel for that. So that was it. But it was a fun experience.
It does sound fun. Where are your kids
Yeah.
now? Where are your kids?
So I have 3 boys.
Uh-huh.
They are, I have twins, Shaoli and Aviatar, who are 24 years old, 24 and 2 days.
Oh.
So yes, so one of them is back home. He graduated from Bard, and one is in Brooklyn, graduated from NYU jazz program, so he's a musician over there. Yes, and then our little one, Uri, is 21 years old and is studying at Georgetown, lucky us, because we get to see him every week. But this semester he's doing a semester in Prague. So we didn't see him for 3 months now. We're gonna meet him in Spain next month at the end of his semester, but he's having the time of his life. Having so much fun, and he's doing this semester is doing a concentration on Jewish history. So I mean, we were surprised that that's what he chose, and very happy. So he loves it. Really loves
Good.
it.
Now, when you said that the oldest, that one of the 24-year-olds is back home, is home Israel or is home kind of the DC area?
No, yeah, we're in Chevy Chase. Yes, yeah.
You feel like
my
that's home?
kids. Yeah, we moved here 22 years ago.
Okay.
When the twins were just turning, 22. It's funny because we moved here on Israel's Independence Day, very symbolically. And so Shaoli and Aviatar were 2 years old and Uri was born here. So they do feel Israeli, and they visited there so many times. We spent so much time there, especially when they were younger, but they're definitely Americans. So
I have a question. Whoever was, go ahead. Whoever has a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. This is Lisa. So my actually youngest child is in Tel Aviv this whole semester on a GAP program. So it's coming to an end soon. They're there with Aardvark, if you know the Aardvark program through Masa.
Yeah, Masa, yes. What's the name of the program again?
Aardvark. It's it's under Masa. But my question
let me ask my husband, because Aardvark is a technique, the Masa.
They do gap year and gap semesters. But actually, I have a falafel question since they're there for a few more weeks. Do you have a favorite place in Tel Aviv for falafel?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Where in Tel Aviv is it?
Yaffo area.
Oh, okay. Yaffo. Yeah, I don't think we never go there for falafel. Shawarma, is that also good? And then I'll give you the falafel list.
Okay.
But Dr. Shakshuka is a famous, it's a famous Tunisian place. They have amazing food and shakshuka.
Okay.
But a few years ago, he started selling shawarma, like real lamb shawarma, and it's the best. It's amazing. Okay. It's unbelievable. So you should go there anyways for the food, for the cooked dishes. Like mafroum is probably my favorite. I have too many favorites, but it's one of my favorite dishes. You eat it on couscous, and it's like a sandwich of potato stuffed with meat, and then it's fried and then cooked in tomatoes and served over couscous. It's amazing, and they serve it there. And falafel, I have 2 that come to mind right now. One is I can send it to you later. Falafel hakikal, like the square falafel, square as in Rabin Square, because it's off Rabin Square where the city hall is. It's a very simple one. It's just very good. I really like it. And another place that's amazing and always very crowded, is Hakosem, the magician. It's also not really far from Rabin Square. And you can buy falafel to go, but you can also sit down and eat amazing hummus, falafel, shawarma, everything.
Great. Maybe you can spell it out for Deb later, or either in the chat or
sure,
send her
of
an
course.
email. Great, thank you.
Of course.
Thank
yes.
you. Okay.
I always like to recommend places in Israel, and that's my favorite topic.
Deb, you will
the food there is incredible.
Deb, you will send that to all of us since my sister is in Israel now. Thank you.
Very nice to meet you, and thank you for doing this. This is Salma.
Hi. I'm just tasting the soup as you speak. Yes.
It looks delicious. Yeah, no.
Thank you.
I host so many amazing events and talks, and I've been many times. But the one that I'm remembering today is because we're in the month of Ramadan. About 10 or 12 years ago, Sixth and I hosted, I think for the first time, a synagogue hosted an iftar. I don't know if you remember this. It was, I think Ramadan coincided with 9/11, and it was a day of service. And there was this beautiful iftar that they hosted, which I actually have written about and published in several places about it, because it was such a beautiful and meaningful experience for me and my kids. The azan,
wow,
azan was said, in the synagogue, and my kids and all the Muslims who were there, they just went up to the bima and started praying, and I just kind of looked at this beautiful scene and was so moved that for my kids, this was a house of worship like any other house of worship. And when they heard the call to prayer, it was just a natural reaction to head, to the bima and pray. So it was really a lovely experience.
Praying to the same God. So yes,
absolutely.
I was there a few years ago. 12 years ago, I was not there yet. And I do not remember this, but if it was, because there was another event just like that, but without an iftar meal, or you're not talking about a meal.
No, that event, there was a dinner as well, an iftar.
There was a dinner, so anyway, 12 years ago I was not there, but they had another one with a Muslim community that came and prayed on the bima, and it was, I actually started crying when I saw that. It was really so touching. I can imagine how you felt. It was very moving, yes. Incredible thing to see.
Yes, really beautiful. I wondered, what are your memories of Ramadan in Israel? How is it practiced?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the answer would be very embarrassing. There's unfortunately kind of a real separation between Jews and Arabs in Israel, Jews and Muslims in Israel. So we were talking a little bit before the session started. I was talking to Deb, and like Haifa, for example, is one town where there's some coexistence, but I don't remember ever seeing Ramadan, experiencing it growing up in Israel or being there. Fortunately, in here, we can coexist more easily and naturally. And like with the Israeli embassy, I actually did a few iftar dinners, first with maybe 10 years ago. What was the name of the ambassador? Michael Oren. Ambassador Michael Oren started it, and we did an iftar at the ambassador's residence, and it was a beautiful event. Again, like it's so, when you see it with your eyes, like Jews and Muslims, they pray at the same time of the day, and there are so many similarities. And we did like the whole meal with the dates to break the fast. and some soup and apricot juice. That's that's what they do in Egypt, and other dishes. And last year I did it again with a new ambassador, Mike Herzog, and it was also like really beautiful thing for me. One of the most touching moments were to meet there an oud musician. That was he was Iraqi originally, so I wish I could visit Iraq at one point in my life, and my family is from there, so I felt a strong connection. Of course, like there's no way for me to meet the Iraqis in my region, only in the United States. So, yeah. Thanks for asking this. Does anyone have any other questions? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So
Okay.
I had a question. I may have missed it in the beginning, but we're making this Swiss chard and chickpea soup, and you were talking about how Israeli foods now have all this fusion to it. So did we discuss whose soup is this? From what region?
So this is not. It's a soup that I kind of came up with. It's not a specific soup that I saw, but all the ingredients are very, almost trivial to the cuisine that I grew up with. Like Swiss chard is very, very popular. Chickpeas are too. So it's not any specific soup that that's Israeli, but and I'm sure you can find similar things in all the way from Italy to all over the Middle East. It feels to me very in the region, at least. It's not an Israeli. As I said earlier, the real Israeli soups would be either chicken soup or dumpling kuba soups, and those would be either too simple or too much for a class like this. I would suggest you try the soup now and see, like, for example, I already added more salt, and I think I'm gonna add more lemon juice. But it's really up to you and how you.
A quick question on the vegetarian soup if it matters between the tofu and the either Swiss chard leaves or the kale leaves. Should that just all go in at the same time, the tofu and the leaves, or do you suggest one before the other?
I would suggest to put the tofu at the end. Really, like they just need a couple of minutes in the soup. So if you taste the soup and check the potatoes, if they're ready, let's see if they're ready. When the potatoes are ready, that's when, okay, they're not completely ready. Once the potatoes are ready, you can add the tofu as the last step. Give it 2 minutes and you're basically done. And let me see. The potatoes are almost ready, so it should be soon.
For the tofu, does it matter if we press out all the water since it's going into a soup?
Right. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it will be better because then it will absorb the flavorful liquid and not just the plain liquid that it had before. But if you don't want to, it will be fine.
And what about the cilantro? We're going to freeze this soup. Does it matter is it okay to put it in and just freeze it with the rest of the
So if you're freezing it in order to donate it,
right,
just put the cilantro there because you're not going to serve it on the side. If you're freezing it for later use for you, whatever you keep for you, it will be nicer to put the cilantro at the last minute only when you serve.
Okay. I'm curious why you felt like you wouldn't teach us chicken soup. Like, is there something?
No, I just thought you probably did that before. Did you?
Yeah. Well, we did a vegetarian version, but also it's just funny that everyone has their own grandmother's recipe, and
right, yeah,
you love the
that's
way
true.
you grew up having chicken soup, whatever it tasted like.
Right.
Well, it's really, Vered really wanted to make the dumpling soup, and I didn't believe in us. And so I actually picked, waited her out and picked this one, which I thought was really very involved also, but delicious. So now that we've had the experience, maybe we could ask her to come back and cook a dumpling soup with us at some point.
I can send you the recipe for the dumpling soup.
Okay.
And then you'll decide if it's if it's something you can really do.
Okay, I think we can. We are an experienced crowd, so I think we can.
Yes.
But if everybody's feeling like they're doing pretty well, maybe we let Vered go and we all finish up our own soups at home. Everybody good with that?
Perfect.
You know what, Vered, you have been such a pleasure. We thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you,
so
Karen,
much
for connecting us. And everybody have a wonderful week. Vered, I can't wait till everybody tries the soup and gets back to us with what they think. It's
wonderful.
I mean, if mine came out well, I know everybody's is gonna.
I'm
and mine is delicious.
Just don't forget to taste and add salt as needed and lemon juice as needed. You know, make it tasty for you.
Yeah, I agree. The lemon juice really gave it a nice little lift.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.